Okay, I'll just jump right in. The Pied Piper of Hamelin. It's an interesting story. It apparently has some basis in fact, um, but I see an interesting, possibly unexpected connection between the Pied Piper story and Tartaria of all things, and we're going to get there. Um, we're going to start with the Pied Piper story. Now, everybody has heard this story probably from childhood. Basically, in medieval Germany, I think the 13th century, in the little village of Hamelin, they had a rat infestation problem, and they needed to get rid of the rats. So a stranger comes along and says he can get rid of the rats for the reward that they're offering, and they're offering something like thousands of guilders, right, or gold or something. So he says he can do it. He takes the job on, and he uses a special pipe, a flute type pipe, and plays a tune. Um, and he's clearly from somewhere else. That's the key. He's clearly from somewhere other than their, environment, their place, their town, whatever. Um, and so using this music, he mesmerizes the rats, and they follow him, and he leads them to the shore, and they all go jumping in where they drown. So he goes back to the town leaders to get his pay because he solved their problem. And they laugh at him and give him a mere 50 guilders. And he tells them, this is not good. You need to pay me. If you don't pay me, you'll pay a worse price. They laugh. They go, yeah, whatever. They don't have their rat problem anymore. So what makes the story famous is the Pied Piper then using his pipe, the flute. He plays a happy little tune, and all the children in the village start following him in a line. All the children, every child in the village of Hamelin. And he leads them out of the village into the countryside and leads them to a cave. And they go into this mountain, Hollow Mountain. And he goes in, and the cave seals up. And the people of Hamelin never see their children again, ever. They paid their price. That's where paying the piper, right, comes from. Now, it is said when you look at this story that it's based in fact, but to the extent that I've done, the research on this so far, uh, I haven't yet found the factual account that it's based on. It just says it's based on fact. Now, whether they mean just the rat infantations of the medieval towns and stuff, or they meant that the basics of the story actually happened, where someone came along and got rid of the rats, but then also took the children. Now, others, of course, point out that the Pied Piper could represent, it could be a metaphor for death, and that some plague affected the children, and that's how they lost their children. His death came along and, led them to the other side. Well, okay, you could say that if you want, but what intrigued me first about this story was the fact that he doesn't march the kids into the sea and kill them. He marches them into a cave, which seals up. And we're not told that the children suffer or die some horrible fate. The people who suffer are their parents for losing them, for being selfish and untrustworthy and all that. So I'm wondering, where are the children? Where's this place that the Piper took them to? Sure enough, in Germany, right there in the vicinity of Hamelin, there is a well-known cave, and there is a cavern system in Germany. So perhaps that's what they mean, some type of basis in fact. Maybe children wander into the cave, that kind of thing, right? Um, it's very interesting, but you have to wonder where the children are. I had that file of the images I wanted to show, but I don't know how to. You don't have to get on camera. You can just tell me. Malia's going to help me with being able to pull up imagery for this one. Thank you.
Yeah, you can keep on talking.
Oh, yeah. Okay, well, I'm going to show you an image of the caves in Germany. And where I'm going to go with this is we're not going to we could sit here and be done with this in 5 minutes just by saying, oh, the Pied Piper was a metaphor for death and that's it, they just died of a disease, story over. And but that's not what we do here at the Walter Bosley channel. We explore the wild, the weird, things like that. So we're going to go with this hypothesis, and I'm going to lead you, I'm going to connect for you how I think it's possible that the Pied Piper story could be connected to Tartaria, of all things.
What folder did you put them
in? Wait a minute. Scroll. Wait a minute. Scroll up. Go to conception art. And I named it. Oh, it's this folder right here. Okay.
Do you want to start with the caves?
Yeah, caves in Germany.
See this button here?
Share screen. Okay. Oh, there we go. Cool. Thank you.
Now you just use those arrows to change the picture.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay, great. And I can go through the whole file. Everybody's laughing at me because I'm just learning the basics.
See this red button here?
Uh-huh.
That's how you stop sharing.
Okay, thank you. She's been giving me tutorials all day because the gremlins have been at me all day, she'll tell you. She's been incredibly patient. We took a break and went and had Peruvian food for lunch today, and that was great. That was even better than we expected, I think, right? Yeah. So here you can see these little things that, interesting, look like grave markers, are markers for caverns. And if you see where I'm circling the mouse, see, here's the mouse over here to the left. If you go to Bremen Niedersachsen, which is in the northwest, you'll see that there's a cave at, let me see what that says. That says Schillerturla, or Skilleturla, or whatever. What?
I can show you how to zoom that in.
Oh, okay. That's where Hamelin is located. Oh. With the wheel.
With the wheel.
Yeah. Okay. With the wheel. Okay, now if you look at, oops. Can they see what I'm doing with? They can't, can they? Okay, look at Schillerturla. Bremen Niedersachsen. Schillerturla, if I'm pronouncing, excuse me, Europeans, if I'm not pronouncing that right, I apologize. That's the vicinity of Hamelin in Germany. So as you can see, just to the southeast, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and you're getting into the Thuringen Wood, where that Joseph Farrell writes about, where the Nazi scientists were doing all sorts of technology development. Okay, but you can see there's quite a an impressive bunch of caverns, a decent cavern system there in Germany, right? And sure enough, there is Hamelin right there. Um, so I wondered, is the cavern really the most interesting part of the story? Um, what's in the cavern? Is it Hollow Earth stuff that's in this? Um, I got my notes here. Uh, are there stories of missing people in national parks and caverns in Germany like there is in the United States? I think there are. I'm not intimately familiar with the details yet, but that led me, of course, um, to think about the missing 411 cases that David Paulides has just covered pretty thoroughly in the last several years. A fascinating subject, somewhat disturbing subject. And when you add children being led into the caverns, it's kind of sinister. And of course, in the missing 411 cases, you have missing children. A lot of adults, but minors and as in underage folks. So I thought, well, gosh, that made me think of this. This is a map of the caves and caverns systems in the United States. Look at these black areas. Wherever you see black, that's where a cave or a cavern system. Now look over here in Appalachia and look all, south of Ohio there and right around in there. Then of course we have them down in Texas and then New Mexico. This is where Carlsbad is, and all the way out to California. Now this one right here, if you can see it, I don't know if you can see my mouse or not, but if you go out to California on this map, you go up to the Oregon border and you see the big dark spot there. Just go down on the right side of California, and that first dark blotch you see about where the bend is at Tahoe and Pyramid Lake, and or where Nevada is right there, if I'm getting that right. That's the vicinity of Yosemite. As you know, if you study the David Paulides stuff, Yosemite is the one national park with the biggest number of missing folks. And sure enough, there's, caverns there, a cavern system. Now, we know that in California, the Paiute Indians talk about the Havmasuvs, the people with the flying canoes, and the people that live in the subterranean places, right? They have their own civilization down there. What does that make us think of? Well, the Hollow Earth. Okay, so in Hollow Earth lore, we read about. Here's a good book, Hollow Earth and the Piranhas, right? And then here's another one, that Architects of the Underworld by Bruce Rux, the symbolic underworld as well as the literal underworld, and many other sources talk about this. Agartha, Shambhala, there's the, there are paradisical civilizations, cities, places down inside the Hollow Earth, and then there's the bad places. Particularly if you read, T. Ilian's In Darkest Tibet, he talks about a place of black magic and cannibals that is a subterranean city, and so that puts a new spin on the Pied Piper story, I think, because you're thinking of, okay, in the Hollow Earth, you've got the fairy lore mix in there too, and we'll get to that. But who is under our feet? Who's living inside the planet, sharing this world with us? And Why would they take children? Now, we know in the fairy lore, as I just mentioned, there are stories of the fairy women will take either a child from the surface world or a male to mate with, but often they'll take a healthy child and leave their sickly child. Okay, this is called a changeling. So, that's just one example in fairy lore about children being abducted, right? So we start with a fairy story, a fairy tale or what have you. The Pied Piper story. We're told it has a basis in fact. We know that there are, the children are mesmerized by music into a cave, into a hollow mountain that seals up, and their parents never see them again. And we know that Germany, of course, has its own collection of caves there and cavern system. We can just conclude that, well, this is just a story to scare the children and stuff, and it's nothing more. And then I can turn off the camera and we can just forget about this discussion. But that's not what we do here. We're taking it to the wild place, as I said before. So the Pied Piper story, the kids are taken by a man from who knows where he's from. He, for all intents and purposes, he could be a man from the inner earth, from this other civilization, right? And he's brought a bunch of surface kids, healthy surface kids, down into their world because the surface people refuse to pay him. So do these German caves through, that global tunnel system that we hear about, do they connect to the cavern system in the United States via that inner world? So we go from the Pied Piper to the Hollow Earth, right? Isn't that interesting? And then there's the fairy lore mixed in there, the Tuatha Dé Danann, the others. Also the caverns here. If you've seen David Paulides' Missing 411 cluster map, which maps out the clusters of missing people, literally, right? The bigger the cluster, the more people who are missing. And it eerily corresponds to this map right here that you're looking at. Okay, that's disturbing, even in a most practical materialist manner, because it suggests that perhaps all these missing people are falling into this cavern system or getting lost and they can't get out. And when you think how scary that would be for a child, scary enough for an adult, but for a child, it would just be a nightmare. But it does correspond to this map of caverns. And by the way, there's great correspondence between this map, the Paulides map, the Scott Wolter map of potential Templar vaults, and the Secherie map, which I've had for decades now. Very interesting. Very interesting that Pied Piper suggests Hollow Earth lore to us. So then, when I was thinking about that, weird stuff associated with caves and the subterranean world and children, naturally, I thought of this. Some of you will recognize this artwork. This is just one panel of work done by a man named Henry Darger. What you're looking at is a view of the underworld. And these little girls here, these children, are what Henry Darger called the Vivian girls. There were 7 of them. And they were these little androgynous children. This is in Henry Darger's stuff. I'm not making this up. And they go on this adventure in the subterranean world. There is a war down there. The war is between the Glandicos and the Angelinians. Okay. Um, if you don't know who Darger was, let me give you a little bit of background. He was the son of a German immigrant. His mother died when he was young. He had an okay childhood until his father had to be admitted to uh, a medical facility for medical issues that he had. And unfortunately, um, Henry Darger was sent to live in a Catholic orphanage. And that's when his life turned sour. Oh, what a coincidence. You think there's something there? Anyway, they had young Darger committed to this institution called the Lincoln School for children with problems, and their accusation against him was that he masturbated excessively. Um, when you hear him tell, when you read his telling of the story, his mother had died when he was young. His father unexpectedly had to go to another state to live in what they called a sanatorium, which was a hospital place, not a crazy house. Okay. And so this kid, who'd had an okay life other than losing his mom when he was young, suddenly is separated from his father and his siblings. And he's in this Catholic orphanage with all their Catholic discipline. Now imagine, this is like over 100 years ago. So imagine how bad it could have been if you didn't suck up and play the papal game. Imagine him suddenly being under that kind of discipline. No wonder he was whacking off constantly. Okay. They probably drove him to, a level of insanity. So then they have him institutionalized. Okay. In a place for crazy kids for his excessive masturbation. Now, he he grows up, he gets out of there. During his younger adult years, he has this close friend who probably they were in a gay relationship. That's what the people that really study Darger say. And he and this guy wanted to start what's called the Children's Protective Society. They were really intensely concerned about children and their safety. By the way, here's another image. Now, take a look at that stuff in the back there, those dragons. That looks like, it looks like Peter Max. If you guys remember the famous artist in the 60s, Peter Max, who's probably most known today for being the artist of the Yellow Submarine album and movie. But these are the Vivian girls. Remember, they are androgynous. They are, and this is Darger's description. In his imagery that he did, he drew them with penises, and this is them on one of their adventures. That's Elsie Perubic. Now that's Henry Darger himself. Okay, later in life. Now, he wanted to start this Children's Protective Society, greatly inspired by his obsession over this little girl here, Elsie Perubic. Elsie Perubic was a murder victim. And that was the picture in the paper. They never solved who killed her. They just found her smothered, not strangled, smothered. And Darger kept her photo, and he was obsessed with her. Now, as a criminal investigator myself, my first question when I read this and saw the documentaries on him, I wondered, okay, did he kill her? And others have asked that question. Did Darger murder this little girl and then, live with his guilt the rest of his life? We don't know. We'll never know because nobody knows exactly who killed little Elsie Perubic. It's a haunting photo. But again, here we have an image from Darger's legendary is an understatement. Let me tell you about this epic book that Darger wrote. He was 43 years old when I think he started writing it. It's titled In the Realms of the Unreal. And it is 15,145 pages. Much of it, these illustrations. There is some text, but much of it is these illustrations. Shades of Delshow, right? And this is one of those illustrations. This, of course, is another. But here they are in this subterranean realm. You know, look at these weird creatures. There's Mr. Darger himself. Let's see what the next one is. Okay, this is the Pied Piper. Sorry, I kind of had these things out of order. This is obviously somebody did the painting depicting the Pied Piper as a metaphor for death. And these are not children, these are adults. But look at death, you know, using music and enchantment to march people to their to this open mouth lion. This is a cavern, essentially. Okay. Is this their doom? Is he marching them to hell, to their judgment? You know, it depends on your view of that. This, I think, is, if I think I've got this right, I think this is one of those cavern entrances in Germany. I couldn't pinpoint where exactly this was. If this could have been involved with, you know, the origin of the Pied Piper story. Oh, and I think that's all the images I have. So I guess I went at it a little backwards. But there's Darger. There's Elsie. Let's get back to this. See, they're strange creatures. Big, giant reptilian dragon thing here. And you could do a whole series of shows on Darger and his psychology, but that's not, you know, what my intention is here. I just wanted to introduce you to Darger in case you didn't know anything about him. But my question is, how did Darger know? What he might have known. Was Darger crazy? Or did he become aware of a subterranean world? Was he aware of Hollow Earth lore? Had he learned things about the beyond, you know, the lore of the fairy folk and beyond the children's tale of the Pied Piper? Was he trying to tell a true story with this story in the realms of the unreal? 15,145 pages. That's quite obsessive, folks. Okay. Wow. For those who thought Lord of the Rings went on and on, you know, for those who, you know what I mean? I mean, imagine 15,145 pages, most of them illustrations, paintings, and things like that. Is this a clue of somebody who learned some secret about our world? Did he learn some secret about the story of the Pied Piper? Did he know something about what is the reason people are missing in the national parks, or that children go missing? And that image, you see this here, you've got a dark underworld with dragons, right? Then you have this, death, you know, marching people into this underworld. Well, I thought, gosh, Let's look at underworld lore. There's Hades, right? Then there's the phrase, the name, the place name, Tartarus. Tartarus is a word for the underworld. It's in ancient Greek mythology. Okay, you can find it. And wow, the underworld, lost children, lost people, caves, a war between two civilizations that we don't know about on the surface of the earth? Is it a war going on in the hollow earth? Who are these civilizations? What are they? Oh, in a place that the Greeks referred to as Tartarus, could these civilizations be the source or the fate or ultimate destination of what people are calling Tartaria? Think, imagine if there was this civilization. I talk about it, a lot of other people talk about it, a civilization that has disappeared from us. Okay, where did it go? Well, just like, people ask, where did the Maya go? Where did the Hohokam go? We have these stories of people who were surface dwellers who disappeared. And we've heard stories of some that went underground. Well, in our times, if you've read my book, Shimmering Light, the one where I investigate my dad's story, I don't have it up there, I'm sorry. My dad's story of an advanced technological civilization living inside the earth. We have that. We have Richard Shaver and the Darrow and the Tarot. Okay. Throughout the entire 20th century, and particularly getting into the UFO abductee contactee era, we have stories of advanced technological cities inside the earth, inside the moon, inside, other planets. What if there was, just entertain this, this is for speculation, for whatever, thought experiment. You don't have to be too serious about it. But what if those Tartaria folks talking about this stuff today are right about one thing, and that is that there was this Tartarian civilization? And what if they went inside? What if they're the ones who are present inside? What if they are the ones who are involved with the abduction of children and other people into their world for whatever reason? Maybe perhaps people stumble upon their world and they decided that they can't let them return to the surface for whatever reason. What if Henry Darger had learned about this, something about it, and in his work he was trying to convey what he learned? Now, we know that angels have been described as androgynous beings. Are the Vivian girls representative of angels? There's 7 of them. Are they the Pleiadian sisters? People have analyzed Darger a lot. And you can go read about him. Go look at the documentary that was made, look him up, read all these analyses yourself. But clearly we have the 7 number. We have these androgynous children, all sorts of mental stuff going on up there. I'm not saying crazy mental stuff. I'm just saying there's a lot there to unpack, right? But what if this weird world, what if this conflict between the Glandicos against the Angelinians, okay, what if that's a real conflict going on between, at that time, 2 factions of a civilization in the Hollow Earth? What if, what if, what if, right? So could that be the case that there is the Tartarians, the missing Tartarians? Now, you guys know my position. Don't get me wrong. All this crap about the World's Fair buildings of the 19th century and 20th century were actually ancient Tartarian structures. You know that I think that's bullshit, and I stand by it being bullshit. But what's interesting, I do entertain hypotheses about a Tartarian civilization that could have disappeared centuries ago. Okay. I do entertain discussions on that. Here's what's interesting. A little point that when I was in the middle of my research on Esoteric Napoleon, Volume 2, I dug into the Lewis and Clark journals. And in those journals, the original journals before Nicholas Biddle, okay, the very corrupt Nicholas Biddle, got his hands on the journals and edited them. Wink, wink. We know what that means. There's a description of the ruins of a very old structure, stone structure. And the way it's drawn and the way it's described is that it was, I don't want to say castle, but it was some type of castle-like structure. And it's very old in being, kind of worn down or whatever. This is in the Lewis and Clark journals. And they found this in, I don't think it might, I'm not sure if it was Montana. I don't have, unfortunately, that volume of the journal handy. But there was a drawing of it in the Lewis and Clark journals. And the person who did the drawing, it looks, for all intents and purposes, like some old structure, man-made structure built long, long ago. Okay, now we know there's Cahokia Mound up in Illinois. I think most of us here suspect that there are remnants of a lost civilization. And I think the Tartaria people would be real interested in that discovery on the Lewis and Clark expedition. Another thing I found out about the Lewis and Clark expedition is the logs are full of Captain Clark did this, Captain Clark did that, Captain Clark, Captain Clark, Captain Clark, Captain Clark, on and on and on, page after page, day after day, week after week, sometimes months of Captain Clark. And then you'll get an entry, Captain Lewis rejoined the group, was with us for a few days or a week, and then he went off again. Captain Meriwether Lewis was spending most of his time doing his own thing. Secret mission, perhaps? I think so. That's what, when I read the journals, I read them completely, thoroughly. And I've come away with, it's obvious to me that Tommy Jefferson gave Lewis different marching orders than Lewis gave Clark. Okay, it's so obvious. Those journals and the story we're told, excellent recounting of what Captain Clark and the guys, on the expedition were doing. It doesn't tell us crap about what Meriwether Lewis was really doing. And then Meriwether Lewis goes and gets dead under very questionable circumstances later on the Natchez Trail. I think I got that book right here somewhere. The murder of Meriwether Lewis. I have that here. No, I've got it at home. This is the office. I've got that at home. Sorry about that. Or I'd share some of that with you. But so here we have, at least in the Lewis and Clark journals, another example of a lost civilization, potentially, between Cahokia and between the, oh my gosh, that site that's accredited to being a Hohokam site in the Southwest. But there's other places. There's the giant arrowhead here in San Bernardino. There's the stone walls up in Northern California that our friend Olaf Phillips, has researched and stuff. There's the legends of California having been an ancient kingdom, right? Of the Amazonian queen. Okay. And there in Lewis and Clark, in the logs, you have recorded the discovery and a drawing of it. So here we have a suggestion of a lost civilization, a forgotten civilization. Where did they go? Could they have gone into the subterranean world? And could they be the ones abducting people into their world for whatever reason? I don't know. I do not know the answer to that question exactly. All I know is that this is where thinking about the Pied Piper led. Okay, so who knows? Who knows what's going on? Oh, here we go. Here's a image of Agartha, the Hollow Earth. Here we have a very old image. My understanding, when I found this is supposed to be an early image of Kokopelli, the Native American Kokopelli or Kokopilau. Now, this is traditionally a fertility entity. And that's a schwanger right there. There's the flute. And this being also uses music to enchant. Okay. Now, the name comes from Kokabel. Kokabel is one of the fallen angels mentioned in the book of Enoch. Remember the Watchers. Kokabel, Kokopelli. Yeah. So why and how the Kokopelli figure ended up looking like a mantid, with a big knobber, and the hump on the back like a turtle shell or whatever. You'd have to just do an analysis of the lore, dating from the Enochian lore to the Native American lore. I've done it once a while back, and you see the thread, you see the connection in the themes and stuff. But I would say that this Kokopelli figure represents something that shares this world with us. But interesting. It enchants, it plays the flute, it's about fertility. And we have the Pied Piper of Hamelin, who uses music and enchantment to lead children. Children are the product of fertility, are they not? So we got all this fertility stuff going on. Does this suggest that the Tartarians have a fertility issue? Were they dying off? Are they dying off? Are they abducting people for that purpose, for breeding? We hear the horror stories in UFO land about contactees and abductees being used for sexual purposes. Could these things I'm bringing up today have some connection to that? Could it literally be a fertility interbreeding type of project, as some people propose? I don't know. I'm not prepared to commit to that. But I find all these things, I find it interesting that you can, through pulling the threads, get from the Pied Piper to Tartaria, and Tartaria by way of Tartarus. Okay? I have to wonder that there's such a linguistic proximity there, right? Etymological proximity between Tartarus and Tartaria. And Tartarus being the underworld or the land of the dead. Could Tartaria be a place, where the dead live? Could that be the when Odysseus goes down into the underworld and digs that pit and they all come from the darkness? Were they coming from whatever Tartaria really is? I don't know. I don't know. This is I'm sharing these questions with you. This is these are the threads that I pulled, and these are the questions that I'm left with. Okay, I haven't written a book about this, so I haven't done as deep a dive as I am prone to do. What I'm sharing with you is the early seed point of another potential topic that I may cover. I don't know. I don't know. Have I stumbled onto connections that maybe others have seen that I haven't seen? I certainly haven't seen these connections before, but I do look at things linguistically, etymologically. I look at things syncretically. When you step back and look at the world's lore and mythology in these stories, you do see common themes. You see what connects them. Okay, but you have to get out of the ego-driven attachment to these things. Is Coco Pilau was only Pacific Islander, nothing to do with Coco Pelli. Bullshit. Coco Pelli and Coco Pilau have nothing to do with Coco Bell. Bullshit. Okay, study linguistics, study etymology. These things do have to do with each other. Gene Matlock has written a fantastic book. It's only that thick. The last Atlantis book you'll ever need to read. And he gets in and points out the Vedic terms that are found in other cultures. You guys are familiar with these kinds of studies, okay? So this is my approach. And what I'm seeing here is how the stuff involved with this Pied Piper story can lead us to the underworld, can lead us to our missing persons cases here in our national parks, okay, in the wildernesses where there are caves galore, as you saw on the map. I have to wonder, is it, and then with Tartarus being in the mix, and Darger, the mysterious, weird Darger, writing about these two factions of a civilization in the underworld having a big war. Well, could that be what happened to so-called Tartaria? I told you, Tartaria people, that I don't buy all your hypotheses, but I'm kind of rooting for you. This is what I mean by stop trying to push stuff that's it's wrong. You're wrong about it. Okay, quit clinging to the bullshit that the 1893 Chicago World's Fair White City was hundreds of or thousands of years old. Okay, you're going nowhere but stupid town with that. Okay, back off of that stuff and look more at these kinds of things. Look more at that, what was reported in the Lewis and Clark journals. Look more at Cahokia Mound. Look more at these things, okay? Oh, yes. Here. You're welcome. And, I think you'll be on a right track because I do think that there's something there with the general idea. And this might be something to look at. I don't know. But I came on here today wanting to just share with you my experience of thread pulling. Okay. This is what it's like to be in the phase of thread pulling. Now, you pull threads, and if they go to a dead end, then it's like, okay, that went nowhere. I'm not going to waste time with that anymore. But this thread over here went somewhere. Okay. This is one of the many ways you have to, trying to get to the truth. Okay. Because, you know, you're looking for what is substantiated, what is backed up by evidence. Okay. Anyway, wow. I've been blabbing for almost an hour. And so I think it's time I go to the live chat for questions. We have a good turnout. I want to thank all of you. And thank you all for being very patient. And yeah, I'm a little off today. For those of you who are new, have never been here, the people in the live chat will tell you I'm usually of a different energy, a different attitude. I just had a very frustrating day bringing this topic to the show. It's been weird. Okay, there's been like little glitches, and Malia's been incredibly patient. You know, I can be a very uh, superstitious person, and thinking, okay, who doesn't want me to talk about this? All that's going to do is make me talk about it louder and more. So yeah, so I'm having a bit of an off day. For those of you who are new, um, go check the other episodes. You'll see. But I thought this was an interesting enough topic to share with you today and kind of get started, because I will revisit this. Definitely, I'm going to revisit this. So, folks, let's go to questions, and please stay on topic if you don't mind. And please, if you want me to acknowledge your comment or answer your question, it must be in all capital letters. Are you listening to me, folks, in the live chat? All capital letters. So, let's see. Triva 2000 says, this is a very interesting subject. Thank you, Triva. Thank you. I was hoping you guys would agree, and I think it is. I think I've thrown enough at you to jump in anywhere and do some searching yourself. And particularly with Darger, I've been fascinated with Darger. Now, don't get me wrong. I am an experienced investigator. I've been a federal criminal investigator, and the thought did occur to me that he might have murdered that little girl Elsie, and then it drove him even nuttier the rest of his life dealing with it. Okay, that is a possibility. Philip Blair, what were those words on Atlantis? I have no idea what you're talking about, Philip. 5DRG, Walter, did you find any Germanic ties to the subject besides the 411 coincidence? Right, the 411 coincidence, meaning that a lot of German named people, interestingly enough, or even German born people, are among the missing. That is kind of weird. I only looked into this to the extent of, what is there, extensive, what's the extent of the cavern system in Germany? And I shared that with you. Like I said, I have not done the deep dive on this. So that's one thing, 5DRG, that I'm going to find out, what further Germanic connection is to all this. There it is. Nick is telling you, all caps, please. All caps. And Renee, Mrs. Johnny Side's asking, I was wondering about the Roanoke cave systems. Yeah, any cave system. I mean, think about it, right? Roanoke Island, they disappeared. Did they go into the caves? Now, some people say there's evidence that they just got absorbed into other colonies, but I've never really heard that. And just because I haven't heard it doesn't mean it's not out there. But I've never really heard that with a level of certitude that that's been proven, that is still a hypothesis, that they just went to other colonies and were absorbed. So that's interesting, Renee. Right? There's. Let me look. I already took this off, but I will look on the cave map. What's interesting, Renee, is I see no caves to speak of On this map, it does not look like there's but maybe one or two spots. I want to say that is the Virginia, North Carolina coast. So it's not like there's heavy cavern presence according to that map. Yes, that's right. All caps like this. Evil Fandango says, the Pied Piper story made me think of the sound frequencies only kids can hear. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. Rebel Grits asked, does that creature look like the ant people to you? Yes, it does, right? That we're talking about the Coco Pelly image that I showed you, the manted looking thing. Yeah, there's but remember, when they talked about the ant people, I think that was it's either the Hopis or the attributed to the Hohokams. In the Native American tribe that talks about the ant people, talk about them, they're not saying that they're like ants, walking around like people. What they mean is they were people who lived in the ground like ants. That's my understanding. But certainly, if they called them the ant people, they might depict them to look like ants, right? So that's a good, interesting point, Rebel Grits. Richard Mills, does that cave entrance look blasted out from the inside? Could be, the one that I showed. Yeah. Oh, for crying out loud. Oh, wow. Okay. Wait a minute. There we go. Ryan Perella asks, why do the buried young king and queen at Cahokia have radioactive signature on their teeth? I don't know how to answer that because I've never heard that before. That's really interesting if they do. Philip Blair asked, who did Lewis work with after he returned from the expedition? Did they have diaries? I'm not aware of that. He went into some political positions, but the most interesting thing that happened, we're having weird stuff going on. The most interesting thing is that he was clearly murdered. Gringo Fett says the Teutonic Order fought the Lithuanian Tartars. Yeah. I mean, we know there were Tartars, the Turkic-speaking peoples, through the north of Russia and all of that. Kenneth Johnson says, Walter, two things. You're allowed to have bad days. Thank you. Kokopelli is also a trickster god in some cultures. Oh, that's right. You're right. I forgot about that aspect. Jay Widener says, Hey, Jay, how you doing? The World's Fairs were movie sets built out of plaster. People need to stop the disinfo. Thank you, Jay. Exactly. These were exactly like movie sets. Okay. This is where the movie set builders, theater. Okay. Theater's been around for centuries. All right. And in theater, they learned how to make these facades and stuff. Okay. So that's where this kind of idea, this technology came from. And that's what, the World's Fair structures that you see that seem so sturdy and permanent. Well, oh my God, they were not. They were plaster over chicken wire and paper mache, and I mean, incredibly much more fragile. I mean, they held up for the time they were meant to. But yes, thank you, Jay. These things were not. Now the Parthenon in Nashville, the people liked it so much that they had it rebuilt into a permanent structure. Jay, excellent point. Read The Devil in the White City and you'll learn all about Burnham and all those guys who were the ones who built that. Oh, by the way, Walt Disney's father, Elias, was one of the many laborers who helped build that White City for the 1893 Chicago World's Fair. Okay. And again, all caps, be on topic. And yes, some Southwestern cultures, Kokopelli is a trickster. I recommend Christopher O'Brien's books on the trickster. Todor Kolev asks, is that Tartarian stuff just a legend for Europeans using Muslim building practices? Huh. I don't know. That's a good question. Ligerleaf says, Renee, more about Renault cave systems in Virginia or North Carolina. Remember, folks, if you're asking me a bunch of questions that I'm scrolling past, it's because they're not in all caps. Good turnout today. I want to thank all of you watching this. Thank you for your patience for the late start and for my curmudgeonliness in the beginning. I was just having an annoying time trying to get this show to you. You're welcome, Ligerleaf. Thank you. Treva 2000, were the Slavic people also Tartars? I think there were Tartars in the Slavic countries, and there were. Look, folks, there were the historical Tartars, okay, and it's spelled with two R's or one R, either Tartars or Tatars. The Chinese did the one R version, Tatars. But these are a historical group, most of whom got absorbed into what would be the modern Russia or Soviet Union, that kind of thing. There's no mystery there. But I do think it's worth wondering what the lost civilizations that once on this world were called and who they were. David James asked, do you think a lot of the viewed alien bases are interdimensional? David James, do me a favor. You're welcome to be here, but all I ask is that people stay on topic, okay? And that has nothing to do with what I'm talking about today. Not trying to be a dick, but I've said it numerous times, and others have said it. Please stay on topic. Let me just say why. And I'm not admonishing or trying to pick on anyone, but it's kind of rude when someone has talked for an hour on something and prepared notes and they're in that groove to ask, what that's saying is you have no respect for what's being talked about. That's kind of what it suggests. And I'm not saying that you don't have respect for what we're talking about, but if there's no interest there, just kind of, wait till I'm talking about that on an episode. I will tell you this. I think a lot of the so-called viewed alien bases are a bunch of fucking bullshit. Okay. Ufology and all that world is full of liars who want to be part of the fun. Okay. So they make shit up. McMonagle's a different story, but you asked the question when I'm not talking about that topic. So you're going to get a little bit more of a direct, honest answer about it. Anyway, not picking on you, just, Griffin Eagle 7. Where were the magical beans from the story Jack and the Beanstalk? Oh, or what were they? Perhaps, I don't know. Maybe they had Miracle Grow back then. I don't know. Ooh, old Gaffer. What do you think of the Green Children of Woolpit? I kind of like that story, and I'd like to think there's something to it. Folks, let me tell you where Walter Bosley's coming from if you're new here. I'm a fan of Hollow Earth lore in theory, okay? Now, it's qualified. I have things about it that I think are crap. There's things about it that I think there's something to it, and it's worth, continued consideration. And the Green Children of Woolpit, is that the right word? That's worthy of consideration. That is a very curious, strange tale. And so I find it interesting. That might be worth doing a show on. Thank you, old Gaffer. Nick N. What cavern talk yet no plugging of Mont? What cavern talk yet no plugging of Mott's Caverns book on your Lulu? Hey, I haven't got there yet. Thanks for bringing it up. I have been for a few years the publisher of William Michael Mott's. Um, when I say legendary, it's legendary in our circles. Caverns, Cauldrons, and Creatures. Boy, do I have a copy of that here? I don't think I do. You know what? I'm gonna. Everybody, hold tight. I'm gonna dash in and see if I do have Mike's book because I want you to see the cover. No, I don't have it here. I've got it at my home office. This is the studio, and it's at Malia's office space, in her home office. But yes, folks, William Michael Mott, Caverns. What is it? Caverns, Cave Dweller. Nick, put the full title in there for me if you don't mind. And yeah, that can be found at Lulu. And look, folks, if you're into the lore associated with who's in the underground, Mike's book is one of the best ones. Mick Connolly asks, "Can you expand on the psychological warfare on angle on this topic?" Okay, yes. Now, do you mean Hollow Earth, people missing? Do you mean Tartaria? In general, the angle, psychological warfare angle on this is that it could all be BS, and it's meant to muddy the waters in a society's trust of their academic authorities. Okay, if you want to seed a target society with crazy thoughts and ideas, okay, to get them to say, "Oh, like not believing we landed on the moon." Now, I don't have a big issue with folks who say there was shenanigans about the Apollo moon landings, because I agree there was shenanigans. We were not told everything about everything they found and saw up there, I don't think. Were photos and images doctored? Yes. Yeah. The people who think we never went at all and it was all in a studio, I'm sorry, I disagree with that. Okay. But that's an example. Oh, by the way, did you guys know that the origin of the Apollo 11 moon landing hoax hypothesis started right here where I'm at in Redlands, California? It was started by a guy who was a student at University of Redlands back in the early 70s, I think, late 60s, early 70s. Anyway, he's the one credited with it. But there's an example. If you want a society to not believe in the achievements of its own nation, culture, society, or whatever, then what you do is you plant these ideas. Oh, you never went to the moon. Oh, we never went to the moon. You know. Oh, the Earth is flat. That wow. That's one of the best moves that I still think the flat Earth thing is a goof that American skeptic societies managed to get out there, and it took off like wildfire. And maybe someday they'll admit it. But yeah, so all of this kind of wild lore could be BS, could be used to negatively impact a society. Why? Because it engenders doubt about their own culture, their own nation's accomplishments. It engenders questioning, a citizenry questioning their own leaders. Not that we don't have reasons to. I mean, seriously, the only thing that the U.S. Congress voted unanimously on and could agree on, is that TikTok is a threat. Are you fucking kidding me? And then look at that shameful display they put on interrogating the head of TikTok, who's from Singapore. I mean, these congressmen made themselves look like the idiots that they are. Okay. But that's the kind of same type of thinking, dropping those kinds of nutty ideas in Congress, for example. Oh, hey, TikTok is a national security threat. Okay, so that's kind of a microcosm of what we're talking here. You could totally do a mind screw psychological warfare just on Congress. But yeah, all of this in Tartaria, it's been shown that the Soviets were playing games with the perception of history with the whole Tartarian thing. It's shown that Soviet intelligence agents were involved in the creation and spreading of some of the Tartaria lore. Okay. So you have to take that into consideration. Will Kilgore asks, any good reading for Appalachian caves or fairy lore? Thanks for the awesome live. You're welcome. Thank you. Just look at Mott's book. And just kind of, these days do a search in a search engine and something will pop up. Tessa 1111 asks, did the gypsies absorb the Tartars? I think they may have. I think there probably is a connection there between the gypsies and the mysterious Tartars. Philip Blair, the young Thomas Jefferson played near a Native American mound that Native people made pilgrimages to. Would Jefferson's effort to understand these be part of Lewis's off the books exploring? Absolutely. Absolutely. I am convinced. Thomas Jefferson handpicked Meriwether Lewis a year before Lewis was instructed to, hire Clark and put together the expedition. He was hired as a personal assistant. He worked and lived at Monticello, Jefferson's home. Okay. He had free reign and access 24/7 for a year to the Library of Thomas Jefferson, which at the time was the largest personal library in the Americas, is my understanding, at least in North America, something like that. And Thomas Jefferson was very much a guy into the philosopher scientist type of stuff, plus material science as well. So, yeah, Jefferson, when you look at the details of that, absolutely, it is my belief, my contention, that Thomas Jefferson sent Meriwether Lewis on a secret mission embedded within the Lewis and Clark expedition. And there are Napoleonic connections to that. That's Johnny Side offering info to Leaf. 5DRG. Are the Lewis and Clark travels documented in a book? Yes, they are. The journals of Lewis and Clark. There are multiple editions. The one that we have, because Malia and I found them in this really cool old bookstore in Redondo Beach, Dave's or Dan's or something. What you need to do is find the original. Unfortunately, it was put out, edited, published, or whatever by Nicholas Biddle, who's a guy I don't trust. I mean, he was a man of the 19th century, but I see him as a villain. And he was the one that he lobbied for and got the position to edit and present the Lewis and Clark logs. And I think he was doing it for the oligarchy. I think that he just wanted to be the one to be able to read the actual journals kept. I also think that Lewis kept two books, as it were, right? The secret log, a secret journal that Jefferson likely saw, but not Biddle. But yeah, you can find these documented. Rebel Grits asks, do you think Lewis was exploring elsewhere, meeting other people? Yes, indeed. He was definitely exploring elsewhere. Oh, hey, David. It's a good enough excuse. No worries. No worries. I wasn't trying to be too much of an a-hole at you. So that's okay. Don't worry about it. It's the day I'm having. Nick N. with that title, Caverns, Cauldrons, and Concealed Creatures. It's a book that I published, and in my frame of mind today, I don't have it at the top of my head. Sorry. Griffin Eagle 7, Walter, the story of the boy and girl with the greenish skin that mysteriously turned up in 17th century England. Yeah, that was mentioned before. The Children of Woolpit. Nick N, it's the Mott book, Caverns, Cauldrons, and Creatures, Cave Dwellers and Creatures, is a legitimately scary read. Scroll down. Tessa 1111. Jefferson worked with 5 tribes developing Constitutional Bill of Rights. Yes, indeed, he did. Philip Blair, you mean like Biddle's job was blacking out portions? Yeah, right? Yeah. Biddle's job would have been to redact certain things. Exactly. But it's whom I think he was doing it for. I think he was doing it to benefit the oligarchy. So let's see. Okay, folks. 10 more minutes. Got plenty of time for more questions. Let me reiterate some of the stuff I was saying. For those of you who are new and aren't familiar with me, welcome. Where I stand on Tartaria, I don't throw it all out. I don't disregard all of it. I do not throw out babies with bathwater. Okay. I said this to the Tartaria people multiple times. I'll say it again. You guys are on to something. It's just some of the things you're pushing and some of the roads you're going down and the threads you're pulling are just flat out silly. Okay. And to insist upon those, you're just going into a dead end. It's those among you in your research community who consider what I'm saying. I think, you'll be more fruitful ditching some of the nonsense stuff. D Light. Hi, Walter. What years are the people disappearing? Well, look at the Polites books. The disappearances go back over, the ones that he documents go back over a century. Paulio Savaggio, can anyone tell me does emergence theory have anything to do with what we're talking about today? And if it does, then I'll answer that question that I've seen twice now that I just am asking. Nick N. Has Sesh mapped out the area in question? No, not that I'm aware of. Tim Houston mentioned Mac Tawney's crypto-terrestrials. When you read the stuff in there, when he talks about EA Guest, that's me. Back then, I had sensitive employment and couldn't use my real name in publications. So I used the pseudonym EA Guest. Just FYI. Nick of Time, book recommendations, The Secret History of Twin Peaks. Okay. Says it seems off topic, but trust me, it is connected to all these topics. Okay, that's fair. That's fair. Thank you, Nick of Time. Philip Blair, the Iroquois were also cannibals, and they kept doing that a lot longer than they claimed they stopped. I have my issues with the Iroquois nation. Okay, Aaron's Energy 313. Your question cannot be over 200 characters. If it's over 200 characters, it will not show up. Also, when you hit enter, if like 3 or 4 other people are hitting enter at the same time, it can bump it. Just Polio, don't just say yes. Please refresh my memory on what that theory is. I'm politely asking. I've got a room full of a lot of people, and I'm navigating through several things. Show me the courtesy, please, of giving me some type of context, so that I don't blow off the question. Thank you. Luray Caverns in Shenandoah. Oh yeah, I think I've been to all the caverns in Shenandoah Valley. That's great. That's a great experience. So anyway. Okay. Yeah. So, we're on tonight because Malia has some business in Montana. So, we thought it'd be smarter to do the weekly live stream here rather than there. And even though I did do some there from my phone, and that's still possible, but the actual official live stream, and boy, oh boy, have I been punished for trying to do that today. Gosh. Polio Savaggio, it's about how multidimensional effects can affect our reality. Okay, I guess it does have something to do with today if we're talking about today's topic, if we're talking about the Tuatha Dé Danann, right? Because they're supposed to be multidimensional. And the cave entrances could be leading to another dimension entirely, folks. So, there you go. Thanks for elaborating, Polio. That helps me. Now I see. And now I can give you a somewhat semi-intelligent response. And that is that maybe the caves lead to other dimensions, not just the inside of this planet. Renee, Mrs. Johnnyside loves tonight's topic. Thank you, Renee. And here we go. Aaron's Energy's question is in. Many ancient tales of specific tones played to open portals connection. There's the classic Alibaba and Open Sesame, right? I mean, all joking aside, it's voice activated technology, right? So, again, that suggests speculation of an advanced technological civilization having built these things. Having once been here. Is that who the so-called Tartarians that the people researching that, talking about that, is that who maybe, and were they of that lost Vedic civilization that we like to talk about, and Aaron's Energy 313, maybe even the flute that the so-called Pied Piper plays is the same technology, right? And he played a tune to open up the wall of the mountain. Anyway. Yeah, I like that idea. Everybody watch Somewhere in Time, and I'll give you a heads up. Exactly. Craig Freeman says that's the premise of John Carter. Exactly. He's in a cave and he transports across time and space to Barsoom, which is the ancient name for Mars, right? As we know. Interesting. Emergence theory suggests that our reality is only possible because of our thought. We think, therefore we are. Yes, indeed, Tessa 1111. Dr. Farrell agrees that harmonics were harnessed. Yes, many researchers, would agree. Oh gosh, guys! Again, wow, an hour and a half already, and I know I spent the first 5 minutes being a grumble gus, but thank goodness for Malia coming in and fixing things up, and we've had a great turnout tonight. Um, Thank you all again for hanging in there. I'm hoping that it's because the material that I shared and the questions and the things I threw at you, folks. Uh, you know, um, this is one of those shows that I just it was a train of thought that I had this morning, pulled some threads, and I'm just sharing with you a train of thought. Okay, the answers to some of these questions might be out there and easy and explain certain things away. But every once in a while, I like to share with you how I go about these things, share with you something that makes me think, hey, I wonder if that's connected to this. And then I pull some threads and I see, oh, it is kind of, and that could really, lead to some more substantial research. And so, it intrigued me. It does intrigue me, so I will continue to look at this, but I figured, I'll throw it out there to you guys, and maybe some of you will dig into this. But if you are a Tartaria person, so to speak, um, remember, I will say it again. I'm critical of it's silly. It's crap. This idea that World's Fair buildings and other buildings, which we know exactly when and how they were built, are actually centuries or thousands of years old, and we're being lied to. And the whole cities were waiting for us out on the plains as we expanded west, and we took them over and pretended that we built them. I'm sorry, that folks, if you're really buying into that, you might be the victim of the when we talked about earlier about how intelligence agencies, particularly the old Soviet intelligence agencies, got stuff out there, okay, to mess with you. But other than that stuff, I do think that there are, I do think the idea of lost civilizations with advanced technology, it has merit. And I think the so-called Tartaria hypothesis falls within that and is very much worthy to pursue. I've been telling Tartaria folks, somebody write a damn book. One of you write a book where you put all the stuff that gets argued and presented, put it in one place, do some actual research, do it honestly, present the material honestly, but put it in one place. The writing of books is not archaic and passe. Okay. If you think that, then you're one of these people that are youthful and, think that that this world is completely new and everything before it is useless. You'll grow out of that, believe me. Um, anyway, forgot where I was. Lordy. Oh yeah, write a book. Okay. It puts it in, it's your report of your research. Look at a book that way. My books are reports on my research. Okay. And it's in a form that somebody can sit down and read and think and see what you're saying with all the evidence presented. And I think the Tartaria people will begin to be taken a little more seriously by others and the rest of us if you guys would get serious about your research and just quit doing what if videos. Okay. So anyway. All right. Well, folks, again, I'll say it for the 100th time. Thank you for your patience and for hanging in there. I do hope this was an interesting enough discussion. And I will, there won't be a Saturday live stream because, as I told you, Malia's got business in Montana. And so it's a little hard for us to do these things. And so we're going to give you a break. And the live stream will be back next Wednesday with Sesharie. And folks, next week, Sesh and I are going to reveal to you and share with you what's in those letters that I've been talking about, that he wrote and sent to me 10 years ago, that are at the heart of our personal research and investigations into time, space phenomena, and time travel. And I'm excited about this. I'm really looking forward to it. I've been wanting to tell you guys the stuff in these letters for years, and now Sesh is ready. And he gave the first part of, that conversation last Wednesday. Go back and watch it. And next Wednesday, we'll see you with a discussion of time, space phenomena, and time travel. So thank you all again. Thank you very much. If you're new here, welcome. Please come back. Please subscribe and check out walterbosley.com for the books. And good things are happening right now with the Empire of the Wheel TV show development. I'll say that. Things are picking up speed. I'm still not rich. You don't get rich till, down the road, but it's happening. It's happening. So anyway, thanks a lot, folks. And we'll see you next Wednesday with Sesharie.